All right, so we'd like to welcome to the show Jessica. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Can you do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself, what apps you drive for, and how you got started?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm Jessica. I mainly do Instacart in North Georgia. I do other platforms as well, like Spark and DoorDash, not as often. I find myself using Instacart a lot more because it makes more money, more of a demand in my area, I should say. I've been doing it since 2018, but I started in North Carolina and now I'm in Georgia. So it's been a bit of a transition between the two, but I'm happy to be doing it.
That's really interesting. Let me ask you first with that is what are some of the differences you saw in really totally different markets?
So in North Carolina, I find myself really busy all the time, 24/7. It doesn't stop. Whereas Dalton, Georgia, they have more of a schedule, I guess. Like, I would say you're not back to back orders. You're kind of sitting and waiting unless you're in a certain area, and then it's repeat after repeat for orders. But where I'm at right now compared to where I was isn't as busy. So that's a bit of a shock, but been able to deal with it well.
Excellent. And so, with your orders, when you're getting them in Georgia, what type of orders, what stores are you going to the most often? How large are the orders, and how much would you say you're making off of them?
So this is my biggest question I always get on social media. I love Costco. I've loved it so much I even got my own membership for it. That is my main store that I will be at, and I like that because they have what's called the big drop, and that starts at 10 o'clock. So all of a sudden, since that's when the store opens, the orders will just come 10 at a time, 12 at a time, and it's almost like you're guaranteed to make money when you go to Costco because it all drops at the same time. I like Kroger and Publix, but you'll see me at Costco probably the most.
That's interesting. I actually have a Costco near me. I kind of avoid it whenever I do Instacart.
I did in the beginning.
Yeah. I Costco scares me on a regular basis, whether I'm going there for myself or not. However, that being said, my wife, like you, when she does Instacart, she's like, Costco's my favorite spot to go
Mhm.
because it's easy and you only have to get a few things.
Mhm.
So totally understand that. So when you get a Costco order, let's say a typical day, you said you'd be in the area around 10, then the orders come in. When deciding what order you're going to get, how are you going to make that decision?
There's a couple different factors. So you're looking at distance, the amount of items, and how much you're paid. I don't like going too far. I kind of like to stay between the 10 and 15 miles at max. And I would love at least $1 per mile. Now, that's giving if it's like one or two items, but if it's like 20 items, I'm looking for maybe $2 or $3 a mile just because it takes more time, especially at Costco. But Costco generally pays very well because they're bigger items that you're getting. So most people are percent tipping, if that makes sense. So instead of giving a flat tip, they go percentage of their total. And Costco, because it's bulk, is double, triple the price as a Kroger order. So it kind of works out.
Yeah, and I know I've seen that if I'm doing like a Publix order or something else, and I have to exchange an item, I'll see the tip change because they're
Mhm.
tipping based off percentage. So I would imagine the same would be true with Costco as well.
Yes, but Costco's very good at keeping things in stock and letting you know in the app if it's not there or not. So, and a lot of people that order Costco kind of have a backup item because they want that bulk item, whether it be a certain rice or something. So, I see more Costco orders with less refunds, if I should say.
Yeah, it sounds like they keep the app pretty well updated.
Hmm.
So how much? Let's say you get the request in the morning and you see it for 10 items.
Hmm.
It's going 8 miles. How much would you need to make for that to make sense for you to get?
I would at least need $12
Okay.
for me to make it make sense for me because I have a small car. It's just me. I can be in there in and out. I know the store. $12 would have to be oh, I'll take that order kind of day.
Yeah, and $12 isn't like, oh man, that's a great order. $12 is
Mhm.
all right, I guess if there's nothing else.
Yeah, it'll get me started for the day.
Yeah.
So.
And so, how many shops would you say on a typical day that you go out and drive would you do in a typical day?
In a typical busy day, I would say between 6 and 8.
Okay.
That's kind of a good number for me. But that's again on a busy day. On a slow day, between 2 and 4 is good enough for me. So
Okay. Yeah, so it kind of depends on the day. And are you driving every day? Driving 8 hours a day? What's your schedule look like?
I like to be out around 9 o'clock. And then because I love Instacart, it works with my schedule. So I come back home around 1:30 to get the kids, get them situated where they need to be. And sometimes I'll shop again after 3. And then sometimes I'm done for the day at 3. During the weekend, I usually shop between 9 and 6. So I do shop every day. But I love it. It's kind of like a hobby for me in a weird way. So
Yeah, totally understand. It's like a
for me, it's like FOMO. I'm
oh,
fear of missing out on the money
I like
for
the
me.
FOMO idea. Yeah, my
Yeah,
wife always describes it as like you're looking for certain things. It's like a
mhm,
treasure hunt and things like that.
that too.
She really likes it, but I like the FOMO. And how
Mhm,
long you said you've been doing it since 2018, and you still
mhm.
have that FOMO?
I still do. Since I have tried to get other jobs, and I always come back to Instacart
Okay.
every single time.
So what is it? What is your favorite part about Instacart? Because maybe it's the money, maybe it's what is it that makes it so that you always come back to it?
I think everybody loves the money aspect of it because you kind of make your own schedule. But my favorite part is honestly the customers. And some people don't think of it that way, but I've met so many sweet people that touch my heart. I made friends with these people. Some people I still have contact on Facebook. Like I just kind of built this community around Instacart in my area. So
Interesting. So you're actually it's not like just a shop that you see in the app and then it's finished. You're actually communicating with these people on a regular basis afterwards.
yes,
So is your community where you're doing the shopping, is it a small town? Is it a big area?
I consider it a small
Okay.
town. It's definitely kind of in the middle of nowhere. I feel like so it's not too much traction, but
Mm,
everybody knows everybody around here. So.
gotcha. So makes a little bit more sense. So if someone was thinking about getting started in their area, what would you say they need to be looking for, or what would they need to do in order to make sure that they make the most amount of money as possible with this?
I always tell people to give it 2 weeks. If you're not seeing that you're making enough money in 2 weeks, it might not be the best fit for you. Every city's different, every store's different. My best advice on top of that is to not give up because a lot of people will give up when you're just sitting there. It could be sitting for 1 or 2 hours, but then that third hour could be $100 order. Again, that comes with fear of missing out. So I just tell people don't give up and give it 2 weeks time and you'll figure out what you need to do or what you can do or anything like that.
Yeah, I love that not giving up. There's so many people that we kind of have short attention spans now. And
Mm-hmm.
so, waiting 15 minutes might sound like a long time, but you're talking about hours that you
Yeah.
wait sometimes. So, what do you do in between orders to kind of pass the time or make the best use of your time?
For me, I'm always on TikTok. I think everybody kind of, just starts scrolling on their phone. I've also just, watched a little Netflix series, something to pass the time. Again, it just depends on your area, whether you're busy or not. Sometimes I'll move to another store if I'm not getting anything where I'm at, but just kind of sitting and waiting
Yeah,
sometimes.
and I like that. I know a lot of us are kind of always trying to find, well, if I'm not doing something, I need to find something productive.
Hmm.
But just scrolling through social media, just watching Netflix it's not productive per se, but it can definitely help us pass the time, and it can make it so that when we get to actually the working side of things, we don't feel like we've are
Hmm.
leaving other things behind. We don't have FOMO of our life because we're
Yeah.
working on money.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. And so in a typical week, just thinking about Instacart, how much would you say would be a good amount of money to make per week?
I don't necessarily talk about how much I make. I will say a good amount of money to make based on the hours that I work. I always try to make between $700 and $800
Hmm.
a week. But I feel like that's typical for any job. That's kind of what you want to make. And I also have to take into account I pay for gas and all this other stuff. I'm buying lunch every now and again. You have to take in all that for expenses too. So,
Yeah, and I will tell you, especially if you're waiting an hour or so in between,
mhm.
you get the munchies and you want to buy a snack or things. So I've actually started packing a lunch and bringing it with me when I go out driving, just because I'm like, nah, I'm not spending $10 on lunch every single day.
Yeah,
This is getting too
I'm trying to
much.
learn that, but I'm like, Chick-fil-A is calling my names.
Totally understand, and you should absolutely do it from time to time.
Yeah,
But I have saved a lot of money by just simply
I
bringing a
should.
sandwich.
I think I'm gonna try. I've been saying I'm gonna try. I think you just motivated me to try it for like a whole week just to
Yeah,
see.
try it for your 2 weeks. So like you
For two
tell
weeks. Okay.
everybody to try it for 2 weeks. You try bringing lunch for 2 weeks, see how much you save, and then maybe you can treat yourself to something after 2 weeks of saving money. Get that Chick-fil-A then, and then you'll still have some money left over.
I'll have to try it.
Yeah, so just give it that 2 weeks you were talking about.
Yeah.
So you talked about earlier other apps that you also drive for. Can we talk a little bit about those? What were some of the other apps that you've driven for?
Sure. So it's Spark and DoorDash, and I've done Uber Eats just very little, not enough to really say, oh, I've done Uber Eats. But Spark is new. DoorDash I've had since 2018 as well. And Uber is just like, I think I've done like 10. So
Okay.
not much there.
And so why Instacart over DoorDash?
Instacart has more demand for me in my area, anyways. And I find that the tips are way better. Um, DoorDash here used to be very, very good. In fact, I was DoorDash before Instacart. And it just kind of went downhill for me. But again, I feel like that's just because of my area, not because of the app itself.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you kind of have maintained this 2 week or try it out and find out idea for your area.
Yeah, I feel like I've been successful in the trying it out because, like I said, I've done Spark now. I think maybe 3 months, and I like it, but I've noticed again it's not enough to make that my full time. Instacart is generally my full time.
Gotcha. So how does Spark work in conjunction with your schedule with Instacart and things like that?
Honestly, Spark is kind of like my backup. So if Instacart is down, which it does happen, there's a lot of people on the app. I go to Spark. I go to Spark when Instacart's slow or it's rainy, and I kind of just want both apps going. But again, Spark is kind of more of they put it in your trunk and you deliver it, not as shopping. And I kind of like the shopping aspect a little bit more. So,
Yeah, the shopping aspect gets you out of your vehicle for a long time. It gets you
yes.
moving. I've found because I mostly do food delivery myself, and I have
Mhm.
found it's out of the car more than if I was just doing passengers, which I've done in the
Yeah.
past. But it's still you're out of the car for a minute, you're back in the car, and it's
I
just a
kind of feel
lot quicker.
normal when I'm not like kind of, I don't like sitting in the car too long.
Yeah,
So,
I understand that, and I've had to actually just like I started bringing a lunch with me. I've actually had to start after driving because I typically will drive around lunchtime. I come home and I have to like go for a walk around my neighborhood or something like that, just to kind of get my body moving in a way. So I think with Instacart that kind of helps you to do that because really the majority of your time is actually not driving. The majority of your time I would imagine would be shopping.
that and when you do Costco orders, you're getting your little workout in. So,
Yeah, that's true because those are going to be a lot bigger items and things like that. So that makes sense as well. Anything else when it comes to Instacart, new drivers, anything that you could think of that may be of benefit to a new driver or to someone in your area specifically, maybe something that no one would think of off the top of their head, or something they should try? Maybe it works in your area, but you have no idea if it works in another area, something that we should try.
I think I have two things. So the first is I'm very big on taking orders that don't tip, which is very rare for people to take. And I take it because not only are you helping people out, but you never really know if there's going to be a cash tip or what you're doing it for. And I kind of feel like my heart gets a little warm when I do it. And I persuade people to maybe take one or two a week, not necessarily every day or all your orders, but just to get, that one or two out there. Um, I find that to be beneficial for me and the customer. The customer comes back, which ultimately puts more money in my pocket. So, again, with taking the orders that don't tip, don't be persuaded to take orders that you don't like the tip either, I guess is how I should say it. A lot of people are saying, oh, this order came up, I have to take it. You don't have to take anything that comes on your screen. That's the joy of being a contractor. You get to pick and choose what you want to do. And I think people, start clicking and just accepting anything. You should take a look at it before you do. So it kind of goes hand in hand. I'm telling you, I'll try the ones that don't have tip, and then I'm trying to say, hey, you don't have to take everything. So
Yeah, and I love this kind of out of the box idea, really. So going back to taking the orders that don't tip, I'm kind of curious. How many of those would you say, and I'm sure you don't have the exact number, but maybe a guess on percentage wise, how many would you say actually either increase the tip through the app or give you cash at that point?
I'm going to tell you probably less than 5%.
Mm,
And I say that, not saying I'm expecting a tip. When I take an order with no tip, I take the order. That's on me. I took it. I fully knew, well aware that I was going to get such and such money. But there are some customers that I have that have been sick, and I'm just doing it for them. I became good friends with this one woman that I do. Every time I see her order, I snatch it, whether it be 100 items and $7, which sounds crazy, but she can't go out, she can't do things. And unfortunately, it's not in her budget to tip, so I'm there to help. But there are times that people have offered to help me. I did it when I was pregnant, and I just kind of wanted to give back in that kind of way. So,
okay, so when you say take those orders, it sounds like you know, hey, I'm not expecting a tip.
yeah.
If it's $5, it's $6. I don't know what the lowest amount in your area is,
Mhm.
but whatever it is, you go, okay, I know I'm gonna get that. Um, but it's just the idea that you're helping someone else and feeling good about it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to me saying the reason why I do it is not just for the money, it's for my community. So,
Yeah, and I love that. That's something that you don't see very often.
no.
Every so often, I will take an order that I see that has no tip, and every single time I get frustrated afterwards because I have the mindset of I'm gonna take this one. And this is gonna be the one that gives me a cash tip or ups the tip, and they never do. I would say less than 5%, but not
Yeah.
never. 1 to 2% of the time, I'd say I'll get something from that.
And
But
sometimes you just never know.
yeah, you never know, and those some of those have legitimately been some of my better tips. But the vast majority are always the ones that don't tip at all. So it does make you feel better. I totally understand that for community. At the end of the day, each driver has to decide, like you said, they're contractors. So whether you think Jessica is crazy or not, or you're like, hey, she's awesome for doing that. Someone has to take care of these people. It's good either way to hear what other drivers are doing, so that we can kind of get an idea of something we can try ourselves.
I think it'd be fun for people to try to do it,
Yeah,
even if it just took one, just to see.
yeah. I keep saying to myself that I'm gonna try a day of just accepting everything that comes in and see what happens and compare it. I haven't
I
done it yet, but we'll
I've
see.
tried to do it with Instacart, but Instacart so many pop up, and it's like, which one do you choose? DoorDash is a lot easier because you just press accept and keep going. But
Yeah, I don't know how I would do it with Instacart, because whenever I log into Instacart, it's a bunch that are there. So
yeah,
you do have to like pick one. But yeah, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, any of those, you can just accept everything and see what happens. It'd be a
And
nice little
Instacart,
thing to do and see what happens.
yeah, Instacart, sometimes you drive a good amount of miles. I mean, in my area, I think the farthest you go is 67 miles.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So you have to be very careful about what you're picking.
Yeah, accepting those ones that drive too far. Another thing I wanted to talk about for a second, you mentioned that if you see a particular person's order,
Mhm.
in my area, maybe it's different. I don't see like a name or anything. Do you just recognize the address? How do you say, okay, I know that that's John Smith's order. I'm going to accept it?
So I've been in this area for so long doing it. I've kind of learned the area of people. So if it doesn't, it just tells you like where the pin is, the amount of money, miles, and it shows you the items. So sometimes I can tell by the pin if I zoom in quick
Mm-hmm.
enough or by the items. That might sound a little weird saying it like that, but no, it doesn't pop up with the name or address or anything. So.
Okay. So like for instance, you're like, "Oh, that's the brand of cereal that Jane likes so much." So that must be,
Mhm.
and that's her area where she lives, so it must be her.
That's how I do it. And I'm hoping I'm right. And if not, it's okay.
If not, we'll
But
find out. We'll just test it out and see.
yeah.
And if it's one of those no tips, then that's the one you did that day.
Yep, that's just how it's supposed to be, I guess.
That
So
works. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Jessica, this was fantastic. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. I think the accepting no tip orders is going to be a big deal. I definitely, at the rideshare guy, we absolutely have talked about this a lot and have not recommended that by any means because you have to pay your bills at the end of the day.
you do.
But but Jessica makes a good point here of hey, let's test it out. Let's see.
Sometimes I think we have to pay our bills, but then they have to pay their bills too.
Yeah.
And you can't always look at it as yourself, which sounds weird because again, like I have 3 kids, I need to take care of them, and but then it's like, well, one order won't hurt me, and I'm just sitting anyways. It'll be fine to me, and that's how I think. So
Yeah. As the complaint I can already see is people are going to say, "Well, then I'm paying for their food. I'm paying because you're putting your expenses in." And you know what? Maybe if you look at the expenses, maybe you are, but we all should be giving and helping other people in one way. And if this is the way that we decide to, then maybe when you're at the store next time and they ask you for a couple of bucks to donate, you go, "Oh, I gave at the office
yeah,
because you delivered somebody's
just one
food.
order.
You just did one order this week and you helped
Holidays
out
are
a
coming
family."
up. Just
So
one order.
I love that. Again, we don't recommend that for making money, but it sounds like Jessica's doing it to make herself feel better and it lets her sleep better at night, which I am always a big proponent of doing things that allow you to sleep better at night.
I think they'll do well.
So, again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.